Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, 3M, and by Die Hard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome to MotorWeek podcast number 89. I am John Davis from MotorWeek, but around our table in Studio C today, we have a very, very full group. Producer, writer, and two-wheeling reporter Brian Robinson is here. Let's hear that again, Brian.
Hello.
Road test producer Ben Davis.
Hello.
That's not your real voice, or is that just the one you picked for today?
No,
writer
sorry.
Patrick Lucas.
Guys, we're reunited, and it feels so good.
And assistant producer Greg Carlos.
Hey there, MotorWeekers.
We have everybody charged up today, and that's good because we've got a lot of road to cover. We'll have our lightning round later, and we'll talk about a question that's come in from a lot of you in our mailbag. But first, we're going to go down a list of cars that we just about everybody wants to know about, does most of these. And we're going to start with the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, probably the single most talked about car of the year so far. Okay, who wants to start?
Let me start.
Ben, it's all yours. It's gorgeous. No.
It is absolutely gorgeous. And I hear a lot of people maybe still don't like the way it looks. A lot of people have only seen it in pictures, and I was one of those guys. I didn't really like the way it looked in pictures. But believe me, once you see it in person,
it's stunning.
It'll change your life.
You know, a lot of people have thrown brickbats at the lights because they're more Camaro-like than Corvette. But
well, it's easy to sit around and criticize pictures. I mean, everybody's a critic. But when you see this car in person, that's when the true depth and the impact just hits you. It's such a beautiful car. Even the taillights have a chiseled out depth that you just can't. They just don't portray their beauty in pictures. But driving it was the real treat. You get into this car, the seats are unlike the C6 seats. The seats fit perfectly. Steering wheel's a little shorter, and it's right into grasp, perfect. But what it does with a doctorate degree is produce just raw V8 sound and power. And to harness all that wild energy through what seems like a completely precise manual transmission, it's unbelievable.
Would you get the manual or the automatic? Or
I would get the manual for sure. And I know I'm not a big manual guy in my old age, but some things you just have to stir with a manual transmission. This is definitely one of them.
When you turn the wheel, what happens?
Well, I had the Z51 package with the optional electronic differential in the back, and our shooting schedule was tight, so I had to pour on the power to pass through the frame before any other traffic came along. So I was hammering as much power as I could possibly put down, and it just took it and did exactly what it needed to with it to keep me straight and just laying it down. It's a genius.
Now, I haven't driven it at really high speeds through corners. It feels very well balanced. What was your takeaway?
It was just that. I mean, it's incredibly well balanced. The car is. You hear people say that it's a sixth sense and an extra feel. It's attached to your mind. It definitely is.
Like any Corvette you've driven before?
Oh, that's a good question. No, it's definitely. It's hard to say. A lot of people rag on the C4, but I think that was world class. That was a good world class entry for its day. Yeah. And this it's a world fighter for sure. I mean, it's every bit as capable as a 911S, but half the price.
Greg.
I mean, I agree. It's a great looking car, but I've heard it thrown around that it looks very similar to the Ferrari F12, and I have to agree with that.
It 100% does.
I think that's terrible company to be in, isn't it?
Well, we recently tested that F12, and from certain angles in a quick take, you might think you're looking at a Corvette, but like you said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Both great looking cars.
I think it looks great. Looks awesome. I think this 60th year of the Corvette. Is that right?
Yep.
Been around enough. Haven't been in this business quite that long, but this is definitely the first one I'd say since I've been around. Everything's right about it, especially the interior. It's great now.
Even the pricing on all the option packages.
$54,000 to start. What's it? $2,800 for the
Z51,
which almost everybody's getting, and then you got another $1,200 or so for the exhaust to get the extra 5 horsepower.
Just the amount of stuff you get with the Z51 package.
Yeah.
How could you not go for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable car. We could honestly do an entire show on it. We've already done a test on it. We've already done a couple of pieces. We're going to take a couple of them to the track over the next 6 months or so. So stay tuned. There's going to be a whole lot more of the 2014 Chevrolet Corvette coming on MotorWeek. But alas, we must move on to actually another GM product. One also that's gotten good reviews so far, the new Cadillac CTS, third generation, now no longer having to cover both the compact and midsize luxury sports sedan market. It can concentrate on midsize. Comments, gentlemen, please.
Well, I think with that direct, more midsize approach, the price went up a lot, and I'm not sure if it is nicer. I'm not sure that it's that much nicer. What do you say, man?
I'd say it is that much nicer. The twin-turbo V6 and the V-Sport, as much horsepower as putting out, I mean, it's a direct competitor now to 5 Series BMW, Audi A6, E-Class.
You know, it's almost got as much horsepower as the 5 Series V8.
It's
it's very close in overall power and torque.
And they're not there. I mean, there's talk about a pushrod V8 for the
V Series.
Yeah, the straight V instead of the V-Sport. It's definitely a world-class contender.
They built it on the ATS chassis, and they don't make any bones about it. So it's got all the lightweight attributes of that car.
Yeah, I mean, they were bouncing their horsepower and weight numbers up against BMW pretty extensively at the press preview.
It's slightly
and it was
lighter.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's lighter than its competition.
They still have the Q, all that
Yeah,
stuff. Have they
that's
changed it
still
at
there.
all, or is it still rocking on?
Have they changed the Q system?
Yeah.
It seemed just like it did in the
ATS.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. That I'd have to admit, I think if there's one thing that most people seem to still have pause with, it's the Q system, which I don't mind that much, but I know you guys really don't
I've
like
come
it.
to terms with it. The more time you spend with it,
It's like
I
iDrive.
haven't spent enough time with it then because I still don't like it.
It does have an 8-speed automatic.
The transmission's very nice.
Yeah. It's an A's-in transmission, too. It's not...
not the ZF that everyone else has.
I like the interior. I thought they've brought the Cadillac interior that they've been doing on the ATS and everything up another notch. I think in a lot of ways it's better looking, but it also looks richer. The car's balance, I think, is actually excellent. You know, if you put it up against a 5 Series, which I hope we'll get a chance to do at some point, it probably still won't beat it. But like the ATS, it's playing in the same ballpark.
In my opinion, as much as BMW seems to be losing ground and losing touch of what a true ultimate driving experience should be, I think GM and in particular Chevrolet and Cadillac are gaining as much ground as BMW is losing. So I think it's a better car than a 5 Series.
Wow. That's a big statement.
It's got
How much lighter was it than a 5 Series?
I can't remember.
It's a couple $100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At
It's
most.
significant.
And
It's significant, I think.
The base 5 Series comes with nav and some things that you have to add to the CTS. So there is an equipment differential. But if you get them, equipped similar, it's still a little lighter.
Yeah, horsepower to weight ratio is in the Cadillac's favor for sure.
So they did a nice job. All right. A car that, I don't know about you guys, and we'll find out right quick, that I've fallen in love with is the new generation Porsche Cayman S. Corvette, fabulous car. Porsche Cayman S, now to me, if you're going to buy a Porsche, that's the one to get. I'm no longer feel like a 911 is a prerequisite. Comments?
Yeah, it's kind of, since it came out, it's kind of been tiptoeing that line where with the 911 getting bigger, more GT-ish, the Cayman is more of the stripped-down driver's car per se. And, I think it's finally pretty much, past the 911 in that regards. I mean, it still has a lot of luxury features, and you still get carried away with the price. You can, by far. But it's It's the Boxster with a hard roof.
I'm all about it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing to drive. I like the steering wheel. It's like no nonsense. There's not like a single button on it. It's just like a 2 or 3 spoke. I can't remember which it is, but I was blown away by how fun it was. I always thought it was like, it's not a real Porsche. It's just, it's a like Brian said, it's a Boxster with a hard top.
It used to be
which had a horrible reputation, at least up in my head. It did.
Yeah.
I was the only reason I was shocked at the price. I didn't know it was that expensive.
It is expensive.
Well, it's like every Porsche. It starts pretty reasonable, but then every option is like $2,000.
Yeah.
How we had it is the way I would want it, and that was what.
That was $80,000.
You wouldn't want it. I wanted to try the PDK though. I don't get me wrong. I love driving a manual, but I would have liked to have tried this one with a PDK because we had the Boxster last year. Also had the manual, and I feel like I was a little harsh on the Boxster last year when we talked about it podcasts ago. But I got in this thing, and it was just one of those cars where you get in and just start driving without really a destination. It's just you enjoy. You put the windows down. I don't listen to any music, and I was just driving for I just didn't want to stop driving the car, and I think that's what makes it such a bare bones driver's car.
The base Cayman is about the same price as a base Corvette. The S is another $10,000, I think, so it's around 65. The interesting thing is we talk about how great the Corvette is, and if you look at a $54,000 Corvette and a $54,000 Cayman, the Corvette I think pretty much wins hands down. You really have to add a lot to the Cayman, including going up to the S package to where you get a car that you feel really good about. But boy, do you feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to a car that actually unintentionally has kicked up a lot of controversy, a vehicle, I should say. The new Jeep Cherokee, a little slow in getting the production going, but they've finally done that. Greg, you've had the most experience in the Cherokee. What's it like to actually drive?
It's very, very nice to drive. And
does it drive like an Alfa Romeo? No.
No, it doesn't. No, it's
based on one.
It fits in that small CUV class now. On the road, it's great, extremely comfortable. It's quiet, and we were in Southern California, and it really handled those roads well. I didn't expect it to. And off road, I was surprised with the Trailhawk, and you have the rear locker. It was extremely capable, and they were putting us through some pretty severe off-road, conditions.
And that's the rub. The purists are saying, "Hey, look, it's based on a Dodge Dart / Alfa Romeo chassis. It was a front-wheel drive chassis. The old one was, of course, rear drive. This is not as capable. Blah blah blah." You came back with a different impression.
No, it's extremely capable. It's every bit a Jeep. They wouldn't give it that trail rating if it wasn't. Yeah, but another thing is it looks better in person. So, again, don't judge it when you look at it because, honestly, the pictures don't do it justice. I'm not saying it's a great-looking vehicle. I don't think it's nearly as good-looking as the CX-5. But it's something you got to look at and at least drive it. Like, don't bash it until you've at least driven it or talk to somebody close to you who has driven it.
What was the deal with the 9-speed transmission? Was it just constantly shifting all the time?
It actually wasn't, but there were a few people also in the group who claimed that some of the models, because these were pre-production models, that the transmission mapping was a little bit different. I drove pretty much one and then got into the off-road one, and it wasn't much different, but I expected it to be shifting all the time through the hills, but it honestly held gears extremely well.
That transmission is a Fiat transmission.
Yeah, but it's an extremely complex transmission, and it would get confused every once in a while, but for the most part, I think it exceeded my expectations.
Any other comments? You guys have been exposed to all the stats and the pictures and everything else?
Other than it does, like Greg said, it does look a lot better in person. I don't think there's a whole lot of it appears aggressive for the segment. There's definitely, I don't think anything else in the segment that looks that aggressive in Trailhawk.
Trailhawk looks pretty good. A lot of people go back and say, well,
I'd go all out, so I would definitely look. I only look at the Trailhawk.
Yeah.
I think Jeep's defense about we already have a 4-door Wrangler, why do we need another one, is a good reason for them to have made it different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen nothing but universal hatred on the internet. But
no. Say it ain't
seriously.
That means it's true,
Hatred
right?
from people who haven't driven it.
Of
More,
course.
yeah, more than likely.
'Cause it's
So I'm curious to see how it actually sells with people who are actually going to buy it.
Yeah,
Or thinking about
I'm
it.
sure it'll sell.
I think it'll sell very
tremendously
well.
well.
Most of the people spreading all that stuff are not people that are going to buy the
That's
thing
true.
anyway.
They're 13-year-old kids.
I'd take it over a RAV4 or a CRV easily. I mean, it's not even a question.
Let's move on now to our lightning round. We're giving ourselves 2 minutes to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. And at the end of that 2 minutes, you'll hear the bell. Speaking of the Jeep Grand Cherokee, it seems like it was a rough start to production. We've talked about the 9-speed transmission, maybe having some problems there initially. What I'm wondering, and a lot of people are wondering, is 9 speeds, and we know that Ford and GM are working on 10-speed transmission. How far are we going with this? And a lot of people don't even understand what it's for. Who would like to chime in on that?
Fuel economy.
Fuel economy.
Fuel economy, you want high gears and you want ultra low ones for getting off the line. And
you want to get out of that as quick as possible.
I'm not sure why you need 50 of them in between those two, but apparently we do.
It's baby steps. You gotta if you're gonna have an 8th or 9th gear, you gotta progressively get there.
I
You
don't
can't
know.
sharply go from.
I drive everything like a 3-speed, rip through first and second, and put it in fifth, and then just tool.
All right, but the average human being, which none of us around this table are, when you hit the accelerator, you want it to be smooth and you want to get away pretty quick. So you need a good solid first gear that'll get you going. But of course, the longer you stay in that, the more gas you use. So in order to get these new fuel economy stats that the government's forcing everybody, you got to get out of first and preferably second pretty quick.
It's all about that big number. I mean, even the Corvette with the 7-speed manual, you put that in 7th gear and put the eco mode on. They're saying 30 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, and then the Cherokee has 4 overdrive gears, which is just ridiculous at that point.
Which is more complex, a CVT or a 9-speed manual or 9-speed automatic?
Oh, the 9-speed automatic, I think without question is more complex. The CVTs, of course, you've got the other problem
two pulleys and a belt.
of their whining.
Or a chain.
Well, that's why so many manufacturers are sticking with the CVTs, and I kind of thought they were going to go out of favor here with all these new geared transmissions, but there's a lot of experts floating around saying that that's basically all we're going to have, that we'll have these 9 speeds, but your 4, 5, 6 speeds will go away in favor of a CVT, and it will take 8, 9, and 10 gears to make something superior to a CVT.
Or you get like the Toyotas and others have had with the CVTs with simulated gears.
Right.
Well,
I've got that in my Mini, and I must say, simulated gears, it's a one-trick pony. After you do it a couple times, it's like,
It's
who
definitely
cares?
simulated.
Yeah. All right, let's call an end to that brilliant discussion and move on to instead of a regular question from a viewer this week in our mailbag, we decided to keep one of the T-shirts for ourselves.
We lost the mailbag.
If you do send in a question that we use here on a podcast, you will get a MotorWeek T-shirt. And one size fits all, but they're very nice ones. But here's one that we have gotten a lot of recently, and it plays back to what we've been talking about the Cherokee. You know, it used to be all off-road vehicles and anything for bad weather, it was 4-wheel drive. And then it went to all-wheel drive because, well, maybe you didn't have low range like a traditional 4-wheel drive system has. Nowadays, however, is there a definable difference between what manufacturers call a 4-wheel drive system and all-wheel drive? What do you think?
they've gotten pretty bad with it, but I always go with if it's biased to front-wheel drive, that's an all-wheel drive. If it's rear-wheel drive, to me, then that's 4-wheel drive. But I don't know, the lines are blurring all the time.
But actually, that's probably the clearest delineation I've heard, because nowadays so many of your front-wheel drive systems that we would call all-wheel drive are being called four-wheel drive because maybe they've got a momentary lock or something like that to them.
Even those lines are being blurred. I mean, even an all-wheel drive, you can they have lockable rears. I've seen sometimes lockable center diffs.
Well, this Jeep's got a lockable rear differential.
Yeah. I've come to take it as in a four-wheel drive, you can select full-time two-wheel drive. But even more than that, maybe you'll have a low range and a high range that you. Well, I don't know if you can find that in an all-wheel drive.
There's a couple all-wheel drive systems out there that are called all-wheel drive that offer a low range.
Yeah, or in a hill descent, It kind of helps out as well.
Well, I wonder if there's a difference at all anymore. Then.
I really think what you said, Brian, was probably the clearest thing. That it,
Right.
the front wheel drive
As
systems
usual.
are pretty much all wheel drive now, and if it's still got a rear drive system, it's 4-wheel drive. However, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Dodge Durango, and I think they call their system an all-wheel drive system, and I think it's got either a single speed or a double speed. So I'm not sure. I think Ben may be right. Maybe it's just too close to call, too difficult.
Because
to
there
figure
are
out.
all-wheel drive systems that can defer 100% to
one wheel or one
two-wheel
axle or
drive?
the other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sure, yeah, like especially the performance ones like Quattro and stuff, they can send all that power to the rear.
So what?
Maybe an all-wheel drive will do it by itself, where a 4-wheel drive, you have to push a button or flip a lever to make it 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. Where an
Yeah,
all-wheel
but
drive
Well,
might
no. Chevrolet's had a
GMs,
fully automatic
yeah.
system forever, auto track.
Yikes.
Maybe we ought to ask this question differently if we're trying to really help consumers. If they're
Doesn't
faced
matter.
with somebody that says we've got all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, what questions should they ask? I would say, can I run around in all-wheel drive on dry pavement, maybe, if there's some kind of switch? I don't know. Can you think? Does it have to do with asking about whether it's got some kind of locking feature?
Maybe it would be at its best. Are you talking about 80% rear, 20% front? Or at best, are you talking about 100% rear or 100% front?
Or 50-50 split at the worst conditions or
Right.
something.
I think I hate to say it, but I think
Yeah.
most people would probably be good with a front-biased all-wheel drive. It's not fun.
Oh,
but,
clear.
but
Clearly.
so that's all you really need to do.
They have to ask, do I have to be aware of my driving conditions, or can I just let the car do everything? Which
All
would
right,
be-
let me take it one step further. If somebody actually thinks they're going to go off pavement, and we all know that usually just means a gravel road, but say somebody's got a cabin somewhere and it's a little muddy getting to it, is there some feature on these systems they should make sure they've got?
I guess you're always looking for what you can lock.
Yeah,
The more you can lock, the better off you are.
Yeah, locking dips are where it's at for sure.
I would say maybe also ought to be better tires, too.
Well, that's a
the-
whole nother discussion.
Yeah, the all-weather tires most of these systems come with are not very good in bad weather.
Certainly a far cry from all terrains, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope that kind of helps somebody. Didn't confuse folks.
If it helped you, let us know, and we'll send you a T-shirt.
That's right. If it helps you at all, please
If you're
tell
stuck,
us.
then we won't hear from you.
I guess that's it. That brings we've covered the agenda of our MotorWeek podcast number 89, and I want to thank everybody that's in the studio with me: Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Patrick Lucas, I get all choked up, Greg Carlos, and thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon or this morning or evening, whenever you're able to catch our podcast. Audio engineer Jim Bigwood is the gentleman that's responsible for making us come through loud and clear. Bob Mixter is the podcast creator, and Patrick Lucas, sitting here at our table, is our podcast producer this week, and he didn't even have to ring the bell. Till next time, thanks very much for listening. We hope you catch MotorWeek on all your local public TV stations as well as the Velocity Cable channel. Until next time, thanks from all of us at MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, 3M, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.